Welcome back from the south. More than 1,300 people were arrested in France in the early hours of Saturday morning during protests against police violence. According to the French Minister of the Interior, Gerald Darmanin, there were 1,311 arrests, the highest number since the riots began on Tuesday, June 27, following the death of a 17-year-old teenager who was shot by a policeman at a traffic checkpoint in a Paris suburb. The protests on Saturday took place during the funeral of the young man in the municipality of Nanterre, northwest of Paris, where he lived. The relatives of the deceased and hundreds of mobilized citizens demand justice for the young man and for more than 10 other people who died in similar circumstances in 2022. French Economy Minister Bruno Le Maire meets with representatives of retailers, restaurateurs, hoteliers, insurers, and banks to review the consequences of the violence in their sectors after riots following the killing of a 17-year-old man by a police officer. On the other hand, President Emmanuel Macron postponed a state visit to Berlin to deal with the urban rioting that has rocked France for the last fortnights. During the protests, shops were ransacked and town halls attacked in various locations nationwide, despite the Interior Ministry sending out 45,000 members of the police and also armored vehicles to deal with the rioting. The protests over the death of teenager Nahel M., who was of Algerian origin, have again exposed the severe racial tensions in modern France and increased scrutiny on the police, who have long been accused of singling out minorities.
The French government said on Friday that it is studying all options to restore order in the country after a new night of riots that left more than 800 people arrested and nearly 250 security personnel injured. Protests have included riots, arson, and clashes with police forces in rejection of what is perceived as a culture of impunity and a failure to reform law enforcement. On June the 27th, 2023, 17-year-old Nahel from Paris was shot in the chest by a police officer during a traffic stop in the municipality of Nanterre. The local prosecutor's office announced that the police officer responsible for the murder was charged with manslaughter and remanded in custody. The current crisis had a precedent in 2005 when the government of the then President Jacques Chirac declared a state of emergency after 10 days of rioting over the death of two teenagers fleeing from police. The crisis erupts against the backdrop of 6 months of demonstrations and strikes since January the 19th, triggered by the pension reform that raises the legal retirement age to 64 and increases the length of contribution required to qualify for a full pension to 43 years.